First off, what the Sam hell are you guys talking about?
First and second off, dodos. Dodos in the... This is the Miserarium, or the Miserabilia, whatever. It's a torture, like... This is where they keep all the dodos before they cook them. Anyway, we were talking about who do you think could be the caterpillar in Sonic's storybook Alice in Wonderland crossover that the world has been demanding for generations.
You know what, you make that joke, I'm pretty sure there are genuinely some people that'd be interested in that, but I think...
Oh no, Pai's already shared that with us.
I think I have... I think I have something. Just hear me out. It may sound unorthodox, but the more you think about it, the more you might realize how perfect it is. Big.
Big.
I did talk about. I did try suggesting that in the last part, but because he always talks all nonsense and stuff. But
That's a good
I don't know. Like I feel like
what you're telling me here is that instead of smoking pot, he'd be smoking frogs.
Oh no!
No,
You forget he
no. Instead of saying "Who are you," he'd be going like, "Where is Froggy?"
And the pipe that he smokes would just be in the shape of his fishing rod.
Oh my god.
Well, I guess in somewhere or another, it's going to get more votes than my suggestion, which was Professor Pickle. I mean, instead of smoking pot, he'd be smoking cucumber sandwiches.
I understand where you're coming from there, but I feel like I don't know. There's got to be some like an actual Sonic friend, not
it's like
a human who claims to be the friend,
it's
but
like,
really just saved him for the.
Hey,
it's like
hey, Pickles. Sorry, go ahead.
I get your joke, but I hate him.
No, I just love the idea of where Jason goes like, "Hey, Pickles is a good man.
Hey,
he's raised a very loving."
Hey, he's the most helpful friend Sonic has had in quite a while. Let's be real here.
Fair. He told us where all the temples were gonna be. Okay, let's see then. Gosh, well, given the current trend randomly with Sonic, I guess Zavik has to be someone.
He could be the walrus.
Yeah, the walrus, and then we just need someone as the carpenter.
Hey, March Hare.
Oh, hello. Oh, I love his Scottish accent.
Oh, yeah, by the way, we already confronted the Dormouse earlier. Hype, he took off. Now it's time for us to confront the March Hare as he uses the Hatter's legs to keep on trucking.
Okay, I was about to ask if those were the Hatter's legs.
Yeah, oh gosh.
Oh dear.
And at that point in time, the Mad Hatter was starting to feel a little tired down there.
And he's like, "How can I be exercising when I haven't moved?"
And just meanwhile, like the Mad Hatter, wherever he's at, he's... Oh,
okay.
That was close.
Oh, that was a very close call.
I was behind it. Don't worry. Don't worry, guys. I'm okay.
Anyway, meanwhile, the Mad Hatter is like, even though he's just a head and a torso, he still has like somewhat of a connection with his legs, and you can just hear him going, "My legs!"
Shut up, friends.
My legs!
So yeah, let's try to think. Is Zavik okay? So then if Zavik's the walrus, who would be the carpenter?
Ooh.
Actually, I think, what's the crazy one's name? Zex?
Zaz?
Zaz. Yeah, Zaz would be the carpenter with his axe.
I can see that, actually.
I just realized something.
Well, then at that point, the walrus would have to be the big fat one.
That'd be big.
Oh, yeah.
No, the big yellow one.
It's Zom-Zom.
Yeah, Zom-Zom's the yellow one.
I just realized something. We're forgetting two important characters. Who would be Tweedledee and Tweedledum?
I was just thinking of that, actually. Yeah, you're right. The people who tell
Maybe
us
the Angel and Devil Chow, I think?
No, they gotta be...
Or Orbot and Cubot?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They would.
Yes, they would definitely...
Yes, Orbot and Cubot would absolutely be Tweedledum.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Write this all down so I can make a fanfic.
Actually,
and what Sega never tells us that was literally the prototype name that Eggman gave them.
Anyway,
really?
Something I guess I should ask, because I'm kind of surprised, like, we talk about, oh, who should play this Alice character, who should play this Alice character. I'm gonna go in an opposite direction and say, do any of you guys have a character for Knuckles?
Did we decide on a character for Knuckles? Because I don't
We haven't
remember.
introduced one yet. I'm thinking of... I guess to be really silly, the Mock Turtle.
Oh my goodness, yes! I can imagine him with
know.
the cow head, or he has the body of a turtle.
He just hit the Bobby Turtle and he's just like, "What am I?"
And then you just hear him move for no reason.
No, because I'm assuming that Sonic at some point is always reading these stories to other people. This is the part where to completely have a random other quote. I'd be like, the second he appears and he's like, Sonic, your stories are getting weird.
You know
Sonic
what?
is the ultimate
just-
fan fiction writer.
I wanna,
No doubt.
You know what? I wanna go ahead and add on to that because something that like, it's kind of something they don't reveal until the end. That all of Black Knight was just basically a story Sonic made up to make an excuse for Amy. I think what you should do for the Alice one, it'd start off as Sonic telling it, but then at various points it'd be like the other characters chiming in and just telling their versions of the story. Like Knuckles would come in and he'd just like tell his own version of everything.
Not bad
If
idea.
not that, if not that, I do love the idea of. I feel like I've seen before. It's like in it started off in I think the most recent time I've heard it was in the Borderlands, like the DLC that was clearly inspired by tabletop, Dungeons and Dragons stuff. But I love the idea of like it starts off as Sonic trying to just. Oh my god, I have this idea for a story.
Ooh.
Oh my god, again, partially inspired by Ed, Edd n Eddy, I guess, but I just wrote this entire game's plot. I got it all down.
Little did Ed and Eddie know that deep within the confines of the Kanker sisters' house.
But no, basically the idea is that the concept is that it starts off with Sonic being asked to read Cream a bedtime story. And so he tries to start off with Alice in Wonderland, but then as the story keeps going, more and more people start showing up, and they start like, no, put me in the story next, and then
they're like telling off their own versions of the story. Like for example, with Eggman, it's like, and then the handsome and elegant Red King squished the hedgehog underneath his boot.
No, you can't. And
it's always gonna be like, I thought we agreed it was gonna be a Red Queen.
Actually, Eggman would make a good Red Queen.
Eggman be like, let me have this. Anyway,
You know what? Now that I think about it, not so much from a story perspective, but say if it were like in terms of gameplay, I could imagine like stuff would be affected depending on who's narrating the story. Like, say if you're in a chase sequence right now and you're being chased by, just on a hypothetical level, say we're being chased by, well, Eggman is the Red King. Like, maybe at one point Knuckles intervenes, like, no, wait, it's not being chased by Eggman, he's being chased by this, and then suddenly the boss certainly changes into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
Stuff like that. I don't know why. Like, okay.
I'm
So
also thinking, like, if you don't mind humoring me one more time, I'm also thinking like even the aesthetic of the story would change. Like for example, if it's Knuckles, it'd be all crayon, just like it was in like that one comic, and then when it's Shadow, it's just straight up American McGee.
just
Oh my god.
Yes.
just for a second, and Sonic's like, no. Yeah, no. And Sonic's like, yeah, sorry, you were trying to help her sleep? Thank you.
And then the game ends off with Cream finishing it off just because she was getting sick and tired of everyone.
Well, that's the idea, yeah. Well, that's the idea. Like, that's the whole moral or whatever. Like, that's the whole point where they're like, oh my gosh, everyone, like, you're all fighting. It's not making it any better. And then I get it.
Yeah,
there's
fixes
an
the
arc
story.
here.
And she
There's
fixes
an arc.
She fixes the story. Then it's revealed that everyone else is asleep, and she just decides to like just because she's just a good bunny, she tucks everyone in, and as soon as she finishes tucking everyone in, she takes a good look and goes, "How did these people get in my house anyway?"
I realize now that I think about it though, wouldn't it be kind of funnier if instead of Cream it was actually Vanilla doing all that?
Maybe. At some
yeah.
point, Vanilla's just like, gosh, I am the only responsible person in this world.
Who are you people?
You people. But no,
And I come in to save the day.
but yeah, just in general, like, I don't know, like, okay, so I feel like the whole thing with the Sonic Storybook stuff, I never felt like it was exactly the stories that was the worst part, even though Marlena is a horribly written villain. I never thought it was the stories that was the worst part. It was always just the controls. Like, Secret Rings is the thing I remember most failing with Secret Rings was its control system.
Yeah,
It just didn't help that it was literally released right in the early years of the GameCube when the Wii Remote still had some. It needs some fine tuning.
yeah. I would
Right.
say that like it's an instance where it's like in the case
Put
of
them back
Secret.
together.
In the case of Secret Rings, it was largely experimental because it was one of the few games that really tried to push what you could do with the Wiimote. Whereas with Black Knight, they kind of got rid of that by getting rid of most of the motion controls, at which point it's like, okay, well, you got rid of that. Doesn't change the fact that the controls are still horrible.
It was still loose because it was like this Rails system. I feel like if you took the story of Secret Rings but gave it Generations gameplay, it would work better.
And of course, never forget the top hat.
Pat.
I finished my work and you're complete, Hatter. Now, what about this damnable train?
Yeah, we have to stop whatever this
What's
train
your
of madness
language,
is.
Alistair?
God, he's so tall.
Well, he always was
No,
this
he's
tall.
huge.
No, this is the game I started off with. I was just like, I'm so used to him being short. Because I watched the Disney version first.
Oh, you haven't even seen what he looked like in the original American
He
Game
was-
Alice.
Oh,
He
damn.
was taller and a little more pixelated, but he is going to. But oh, there we go.
Huh? Hey, what are the new rules?
The law is just a whisper away home to wonder who knows how to measure rules with a ruler. Cruel rules.
Oh boy.
I think the dialogue is as wittily and as weird as Lewis Carroll's stuff, and I like it.
Indeed.
Yeah, I love
All
this.
going in circles.
Oh.
But whereas he was a villain in the first game, he's actually helping us.
Wow, I mean,
Yeah.
well played.
Superman.
Oh, that
I
is
thought it would be
cute.
more-
That is really
I thought
cute.
it'd
Pretty
be-
much.
I thought it'd be more like Superman.
Please tell me we get to play as
Yeah.
the Mad Hatter first for refit.
No, we don't.
Aw,
damn.
He runs off ahead, and he's gonna be like helping us get through this last facility.
Where is he anyway?
He went on ahead. We're at the
Oh, okay.
assemblage for destruction.
Oh.
Man,
construction.
I wanted a platform challenge with the Mad Hatter.
That would have been cool. That was pretty cool. Again, I feel like this game. I know you didn't have much investment in the first one. Hype. It was more like the world building and the tone. I thought was cool, but I feel like the sequel does a lot more with what it has, like with the set pieces and stuff.
I'm not gonna say you're wrong about that, but it also is just a matter of just the genre in general is something I don't usually gravitate towards.
Gotcha.
Fair enough.
Understandable. Wait, did I
Did they
say
say-
understandable? I said understandable.
I'm a
I was
I
gonna
don't
say
know.
it's not. I understand. It's not really your cup of tea.
Each one of us gets a
Thank
pun, and we
you.
always get a pun. I'll be here all week. Because I don't leave the house.
Well, it is your specialty.
There you go. You got yours. Who's next?
Hooray.
Take the microphone. Come on.
Come on, we don't have all day.
I got nothing.
I knew it. Throw tomatoes at
Thank you,
me.
Hatter. Whew. He'll get the door open.
All right. Let's see.
Unfortunately, this basically means for us is we have to take out a couple an enemies. And yeah, as you see, the Clockwork Bomb actually has two uses in combat. It can damage some enemies, but more or less, it actually acts as a great decoy.
Ah.
Well, then let's make the most of it.
It'll be great, and it'll be good to use in like crowd control methods if I feel like I'm getting ganged up on.
Good idea.
Don't be on me. Be on him instead.
Hurt the bunny.
Not the bunny.
It's like
I just wanted a bedtime story.
No.
Not that one.
Again, I still love the idea that the voice of I still love the concept that frickin' Elmo's performer in the last episode of Dinosaurs was just throwing a huge fit just to make the most out of the whole like
yeah.
episode.
I still can't believe that the voice of Elmo once voiced Splinter from the Ninja Turtles.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he voiced him in like the first two live-action movies.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's about it. That's about it for our Sonic little Alice one. Again, just it was a concept. It worked. It could have maybe worked better. I don't know.
And it's pretty clear that Sega has no intention of going back to the storybook stuff ever again.
Well, to be fair, there's not a whole lot of people that, aside from that vocal minority, there's really not a whole lot of people begging them to.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I'd
mind them going gung ho with their plots every once in a while. Just it doesn't always have to be with the same gameplay style.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, like I feel like everybody at this point is probably feeling like, okay, how about you make a good mainline Sonic game, and then we'll think about making some good spin-offs. How about we focus on the normal games and making those competent first? Looking at forces.
But wait. Sonic in Dreamland. But Kirby already is in Dreamland. But Dreamland. No. Aw.
We already did that. We've just been talking about the Wonderland thing.
I said
No, this is
Dreamland.
Dreamland. This is
Dreamland.
Dreamland, not Wonderland.
Also, if you're wondering what
What's the
happened,
difference?
also, oh geez, that train's getting closer. Also, if you're wondering why whenever I sometimes enter those keyhole areas, my controls get a little weird, the game does that thing where if you're holding the direction, like, I'm going to move forward, but then the camera suddenly shifts. It's like your controls are locked in that original perspective for a second unless you like let go and let it reset.
So it's like Resident Evil all over again.
Aw.
Yeah, it's a little bit. But no tank controls at the very least. Again, like like I said earlier, that's something I like is that this game does not have the tank controls of the original. It's a lot nicer. Alright, where am I going next?
Don't we always know where we want to go?
Oh, there we go. Switch. I shoot these switches to make them activate.
You know, and I was just thinking back, just going back to the whole conversation that we were having, not so much with, like, them doing a version of Alice in Wonderland, but just the general idea of, like, having Sonic characters, like, taking turns babysitting Cream. Like, I remember for a while I had this idea in my head about what if the Chaotix had the babysitter at one point.
Aww.
I could see that being, like, something where they have to do it they have to do it for the money.
They have to do it for the money, and Victor's also doing it, hoping it'll score him some points with Vanilla.
Oh yeah, didn't he used to have a crush on her in the Sonic X show?
It's mostly a thing in Sonic X, but honestly, I don't mind it.
Oh yeah.
Huh, I didn't know that. I thought
it's like the one other thing that Vanilla's relevant in, so...
Yeah.
Well, better than Tails and Plant Girl.
Oh, Cosmo. Cosmo.
Plant Girl.
Which is funny because Victor also tried to be matchmaker for them too.
Oh god.
Yeah,
wasn't that an uncut, like, Japanese only?
Yeah.
No, it got an English dub.
No, that was...
Nope.
I think that was the part where Shadow went to a bar.
There's a couple. I mean, there's also there are actually like outright. There are also like really. There are also really like what the heck the word? Suggestive jokes, especially between Rouge and the police officer. I think.
She
gets like handcuffed at one point.
I remember one episode, or two moments. One is an episode where Knuckles is chasing after not Orbot and Cubot, and there's a point where he chases them into basically a stripper club, and the minute Knuckles sees where he's at, he blushes red and then just runs out embarrassed.
Aww.
So
poor innocent boy. Oh, that's not
that is I feel like it has a name, but I'm calling right now the Infernal Train.
It looks like
it represents the corruption spreading throughout her mind.
It looks like a chapel.
It looks more like a chapel, like Notre Dame.
That's what
it kind of does look
like
a
cathedral on wheels.
Yeah.
Are those two quaking? What are they up to?
Yeah, what's with the Dormouse and the March Hare? It went up here somewhere.
It's left.
Somewhere over there, over there.
They created the engine. Yeah, it looks like they created the engine already.
Wow.
Actually create that infernal train.
He lost
just like
it.
Deranged, delightful.
Oh boy,
Hey!
That's a. So I was talking about how this game sometimes has cut content, and maybe some content had to be cut at some point.
Uh-huh.
Oh no!
What is that?
It looks like we're about to summon Satan.
Now I'm just expecting the boss intros from Splatoon.
Oh, hello, Dormouse.
The damage is
Gosh, a double boss fight. I hate these.
Oh jeez.
Oh, they're both controlling a machine.
That's why I said double boss fight.
So among those cut content, I feel like bosses were cut.
Oh.
Yeah, the Mad Hatter got free and kind of dropped the tea kettle on them.
Wow.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
Done.
So much
Wait,
for
I feel like bosses.
Hatter.
I feel like bosses were planned at some point, but maybe they had to cut them for time's sake. So sometimes you have little odd endings like that. But anyway, let's see a cutscene.
Are there any bosses in this game?
Yes.
Yes,
final
there's
boss,
definitely
at least.
bosses in this
Just
game.
the final boss.
Oh,
Okay.
they're dead.
All I really wanted was another tea party.
Yeah, they're
Please,
dead.
Hatter, you promised. Where is that train going? What's its purpose?
I do like this paper doll style.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Sort of puppet, shadow puppet style.
That's nice.
Oh, he's still kind of insane and just wants to have a tea party.
They're all dead though.
You're really doing this even after what they've done to you?
He's mad.
Memories are shattered.
Yeah.
I'm
True.
trying to collect the pieces, and I now believe the train impedes me. You must help me.
You're losing your train of thought, Alice. Funny tiss.
Oh boy.
And he goes down with them.
He deserved to die,
Oh.
and I'm about to drown in tea, in ignorance.
Oh.
And the tea
She's taking
floods.
that fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her mind's just... So, the reason why all that tea was flooding is because in our psychotic rambling around,
Oh,
the
hello.
harbor.
we accidentally like were drowning in the river for a second there.
Take her over to the Mango Mermaid. Rent a bed. Answer woo a girl.
Yeah.
The hell?
Do you think you're doing?
What comes natural like?
Not natural to me. Get away.
And at least they respect it. So, okay,
yeah, good thing.
that was not a situation we almost got ourselves into, so...
That just happened.
Let's just
You
move.
know,
So, yeah, we...
considering we're twice her size, we'd think we could force her to do with us. But
No.
I guess
No!
not.
They're still I don't know, it's an odd life. So, we've finally made it back to reality after waking up, but we're still kind of lost, so we need to figure out more about what's happening. So join us as we go back to Mario London.
You know, I've heard of people trying to splash water in your face just to wake you up. Diving in an entire seabed is another thing. Till next time, guys.
Bye.
Under the sea, under the sea.
No, it's under the T.
Oh.
We're all mad here.